This is a very fun problem, a very nice output that we will have from running the program, and it may sound like it is complicated. However, take courage, take heart, do not think that this is too complicated for your level example. What we want to do is to print something that looks like a table, an n times n table. Now, the entry at a specific row and a specific column will have stars, a star, if a particular condition is true. So, if we are at row I and column J, then that box will have a star if I divides J or J divides I. In other words, if the remainder of the division is 0, then we put a star. Again, the example that you see on your slide, what is printed, shows that we don't really care about the lines, making boxes with lines and making a grid. We do want to print something like what you see on your screen. Try to solve this yourself and then we will come back like usual. Here is our code that we have started, and I have to make the admission here that I have cheated a little bit, and the reason is that I have already run the program, the complete program, not the version that you see here, so that we can actually see the pattern of the stars, and based on this pattern get inspired on what exactly we should put in the missing part of the code. What have we done here? We have given n the value 5 because that was the example we saw also at the slides. We can give any number we want there. And then we have a nested for loop, which is the main point to understand why we would like to have that. As we have written on the comments, the I variable, so the outer for loop, will be responsible for printing the rows of the table, while the J for loop will be printing the columns of the table. Remember how a nested loop works. When I has the value 1, the inside for loop will complete before I gets its next value, which will be value 2. So how many times will the inside for loop run? It will run n times, because it goes from 1 until j is less than or equal to n. So we will have n things printed for every row, n columns printed for every row. So this will be printed, all of the columns of the first line, then all of the columns of the second line, and so forth. This is how we will use the nested for loop in order to print our table. Now, what do we need to print? We should either print at every position, at every ij position, we should either print a star or space. When do we print a star? We print a star if the division between I and j does not leave a remainder, or the division between j and I. How can we figure that out? With a very nice mod operator. So all we need to check as a criterion here is if the division, if the remainder is 0 of either j divided by I or I divided by j. If they have 0 as a remainder, then we print a star, otherwise we print an empty space. This final print statement that we have inside the outer for loop is just so that every time we print all of the columns, before we print the next row, we go on the other line. The final important note to mention here is the fact that we have not started counting the loop variable from 0, neither for the outer for loop nor for the inside for loop. We have started from 1, and the reason for that, and we have also changed accordingly the comparison operator. Instead of strictly less than, it is now less than or equal. The reason for that is that we are using these I and j values for row and column numbers so that we apply the criterion. We want the row column of the very first one to be 1 instead of 0, because otherwise the criterion in this form will not work. If we started from 0, for example, we would have to say I plus 1 and j plus 1 and so forth. And there is really no reason to do that. We can just start from the right value.